Hello, I'm Rob Reed. I'm also Yoga Dad, and I am running these online bite-sized yoga for cyclist classes to celebrate the start of the Tour de France. And these classes will be uploaded to YouTube over the course of the Tour de France over the next 3 weeks or so. We'll be focusing on areas where cyclists often experience a lot of tension and aches in their body, and basically we'll be looking to provide some relatively straightforward stretches, 5 to 10 minute sequences that really enable cyclists to tackle those areas of aches or tensions and ultimately result in more enjoyable rides. Now today's class is going to focus on us being seated. So we're going to start in a seated, comfortable cross-legged position. So I've got my legs crossed in this way. Equally, you could have one out in front of the other. What I would recommend, and often I see with lots of cyclists, is that their knees are often up around their hips, primarily as a result of the fact they've got tight inner thighs, but also tight hamstrings, restricted space across their hips as well. So if that's the case for you, feel free to take a block or a book and just place it underneath, just to give yourself that little bit of extra height. And as you can see already, for me, my hips are at least as high as my knees, and that just takes some of that strain away, but also creates a lot more space across the insides of the hips. Okay, so without further ado, let's start our short practice today. So let's close our eyes and just bringing ourselves into the physical space that's around us. You may be outside, similar to me. You may equally be inside. So as we draw our attention away from our sight, just increasing that attention now for our other senses. The sounds that are around us, where our body comes into contact with the ground, the yoga mat. Just allowing that to now enable you to be or feel present in this moment. Now bringing attention to the physical body. So tracing a line, an imaginary line, all the way from the crown of the head down towards the tailbone, along the legs, all the way down towards the feet. And as you do that, just pausing for a moment where you experience any aches or tensions in the body, and using that to help frame your practice. Maybe where you want to work, focus your efforts, but equally how to set a frame, a boundary, the challenge that you set yourself in your practice, and how far you want to push yourself. Now allowing the crown of the head to feel as though it's reaching up towards the sky, while at the same time the opposing force of the tailbone reaching down, grounding down either towards the floor, or onto a block or a book, and feeling the length that's now created along the spine, but also the space that's now created across the chest and the shoulders. Shoulders just lowering down away from the ears, hips opening up, rotating away from one another. And again, if there's any aches or tension that you're experiencing and it becomes too strong, then just easing back out of this pose again and finding a more comfortable position. Now bringing some attention to the breath, where the breath originates in the body, in the deep abdominal region, where the breath arrives to, whether it originates and circles in the belly region, or whether you're able to deepen, lengthen the breath so that it arrives up towards the rib cage, almost as though each rib is separating away from one another. Maybe even breathing, directing that breath on an inhale all the way up towards the chest, the lower neck, and then on each exhale allowing that breath just to leave the body, every last ounce of that breath to leave the body. Now bringing some attention to the mind. Any thoughts that you have, just acknowledging that they're there, and bringing attention back to the breath and the body, the physical space that's around you. And now slowly opening the eyes, nice soft gaze. So we're going to start with some shoulder rolls. So let's just rotate our shoulders up towards our ears in one direction. And as we lift the shoulders up towards the ears, just feeling that opening now across the chest, across the shoulders, but also what's happening across the upper back. Another area where for us as cyclists we often experience a lot of tension. So just allowing the shoulder blades to separate away from one another and then back towards. And just seeing how that feels. And just doing that for a few breaths, maybe even integrating the breath through that movement. Just feeling as though the body lifts maybe on an inhale, sinks back down on an exhale. Now bringing the shoulders back into a neutral position, inhaling to lift up, exhaling to allow the shoulders to release back down, inhaling up, exhaling back down, and then one more time, and back down again. Okay, now let's move into the next pose. So let's shift our gaze across towards and across the left shoulder. Still with our palms across our knees, and let's lift our gaze now up towards the sky. So as we lift our gaze up, we can feel that stretch along now the front of the neck, and as we shift our gaze across the right shoulder, we now feel that stretch along the left. Now we can continue in those semicircle rotations, or we can take our chin now in towards the chest, feeling that length now along the back of the neck, and then continuing to rotate around. So almost imagining as though we're tracing an imaginary line with our gaze across the sky, across the ceiling, around the room, wherever we're practicing today. And just maybe even closing the eyes. Again, integrating the breath in that movement. Inhaling as you lift up. Exhaling as you rotate down. And then bringing the head back into a neutral position after that last rotation. And now taking our right hand and placing it out towards the side. So really feeling as though we're reaching the fingers down away from us, down towards the ground. Still keeping that left palm across the left knee. And now lowering the left ear down towards the left shoulder. Now immediately as soon as you start doing that, and you may not need to go very far, you start feeling a stretch along the right side of the neck, all the way along the collarbone, down the right side of the arm, down towards the right fingers. Again, just playing with that movement, maybe lowering the chin just that little bit closer in towards the chest or away, and feeling those different sensations along the side of the neck. It's such an area of common tension for us as cyclists, so it's really good through these subtle movements to work this part of the body. Now if that feels comfortable, taking the left hand, bringing the left fingertips across the right side of the head and just gently pressing down, gently pressing that left ear down towards the left shoulder while still reaching away with it with the right fingers. Now taking the left fingers away, placing the left hand across the knee again, lifting the head back up into a neutral position, right palm back across the right knee, and then the same on the left hand side. So let's reach those left fingers out, right ear to right shoulder, stretch now along the left side of the neck, all the way down the collarbone, along the arm, down towards the fingers. And if that feels comfortable, taking the right hand, fingertips across the left side of the head, and applying gentle pressure against the left side of the head. Maybe even closing the eyes, just really focusing on where that stretch is activated, the sensations along the left side of the body. And left fingers away from the right side of the head, bringing our palms back across our knees. Now our final pose in this sequence today, because it's only a short sequence, just hip rotations. Let's start with our palms across our knees, really lifting up crown of the head towards the sky, creating that space across the chest and the shoulders, lengthen the spine, and let's just start rotating in one direction or the other. So rotate around, drawing the chest across each of the opposite thighs, allowing ourselves to lower forward, rocking around on the tailbone, and just sinking into this stretch. It's almost as though we're pressing down into the palms as we rotate around. Now I'm going quite deep into this rotation. You may find that it works a lot better for you depending on the space across your hips, just by having quite a shallow rotation. But just imagining here that we're stirring around the pot, creating that bit more space across the hips. Again, an area where we often experience a lot of tension as cyclists. Again, this kind of subtle movement can really make a big difference. It's the kind of thing we could do every day, just when we're seated. Doesn't necessarily have to be a lot. And this is the purpose of this practice today. We're kind of proving that actually you don't need to go into a yoga class, as much as I'd love for you to join me at one of my Yoga for Cyclists classes. But this is the kind of thing you can just do anywhere, really. So maybe even inhaling and exhaling as we rotate. So inhaling as we fold forward, exhaling as round back. Again, we're just learning the principles of integrating breath through movement. It's just so fundamental to yoga. Now bringing yourself back up into a neutral position. And just finding yourself in a comfortable seated position as we now close our eyes again. So drawing that attention back inwards, acknowledging the senses, the sounds, where our body again comes into contact with the ground or the block. The physical space, to the physical body, crown of the head reaching up towards the sky or the ceiling, tailbone again drawing down towards the floor, length along the body, length along the spine, space across the hips, the shoulders. Bringing attention back to the breath again. Slow, steady rhythm. Inhales and exhales. Attention back to the mind. Once again, acknowledging those thoughts as they come and go. And if you find yourself distracted, then bringing attention back to the breath, the body, the physical space that's around you. And then when you're ready, just slowly opening the eyes again, nice soft gaze. Bring our hands now into the heart center. Now, thank you for joining me today for this first of my online bite-sized yoga for cyclist classes alongside the Tour de France this year. I really hope you've enjoyed this class, around about 10 minutes or so, so hopefully there's enough time in your day to fit this in around your cycling and other activities on the day-to-day basis. I'll be running more of these classes over the next 3 weeks, so just look out for those. Thank you again for joining me. Namaste.